arguments over rights and things. Where do they come from? And the contract philosopher of our contemporary time, even though he died in 2002, is John Rawls. So if you go to the University of Chicago to study law, you will get John Rawls 1 and John Rawls 2, two different courses. The first one will be on his first book, and the second one on the second. So the first one, Theory of Justice. In his Theory of Justice, he argues that we have to take into consideration, when we're creating new laws, the situation in the actual society that we're trying to fix, right? And so what you have to do as a lawmaker is put a veil of ignorance over your head. Not literally, but the idea is this veil of ignorance will keep you from thinking about your own selfish interests in whatever laws are being created. And instead, you're going to think, using this veil of ignorance, what would the members of our society who have the least in society need? And if the law that we're trying to create isn't going to improve the situation for those individuals who have the least, then we ought not to create that law. The focus should be on those who have the least, improving the lives of those in our society that have the least. We use a veil of ignorance to try to do that. So this is a very liberal point of view, by the way, right? John Rawls is the liberal in that argument. Harvard, his own Harvard a contemporary who disagreed with him was Robert Nozick. So he's the conservative of, libertarian. If you're familiar with, libertarians are conservatives to the nth degree. If that makes sense. If you think of this as a circle, so that you've got conservatives on the circle and liberals on the circle and libertarians on the circle. A libertarian is kind of half a conservative and half a liberal. And the half of the liberal is that they want the most freedoms possible, but they're also conservative because they feel like there should be as little government as possible. More government you create, the more corruption you're going to have. Where does that come from? Rousseau, right? So Nozick, if you're interested in the flip side to that. So, social contract is going to take Hobbes, but instead argue that what we have in society are lots of individuals that do get along, because we do have an intuitive sense of what the laws of nature are, but because of the diversity of people, you end up with people interpreting those laws of nature differently from their own point of view. So what we have to do is form a government, create a social contract where we come together in a parliament and discuss what laws we ought to have, and we create them for our own defense. So that's a Hobbesian point of view, right? We want security. That's a very essential part of this. But we also want to protect our property. And so we don't want the king to take it. The king doesn't have the right to take your property unless in the contract we stipulate that he does for certain purposes, right? So taxes, well, that's the king taking your property, right? So we have to form an agreement together over what kinds of things we should allow the government to take from us in order to do what we are saying that the government can do, right, or should do, right? We do need an army, because neither Hobbes nor Locke nor Rousseau expect the nation states, which are really becoming more and more of a strength in Western Europe, to go away. They expect that to be a permanent fixture. I mean, the European Union is kind of an amazing thing, and yet you can imagine all the difficulties the European Union has had, not only with England deciding to Brexit recently, I mean, et cetera, right? So you're definitely going to need an army, and the army has to be supported by the king and taxes, and so you have to pay, figure out taxes. That has to happen. But at the same time, we have to be careful not to let the king have too much power. So Locke is the one who gives us the theory that there ought to be checks and balances over the different parts of government. So the parliament, the legislative, right? Parliament is the ultimate authority. Parliament creates the laws. The king is a limited monarch whose job is to execute the laws. He's the executive, right? So you end up with the parliament creating the laws and judging the king's executive authorities. You know what? And by the way, if you go to England or you see them when they parade around with the king in Parliament, notice that the justices follow the king, because in England they don't have three parts of government, right? We have the three. We have the legislative branch, we have the executive branch, but we also have the judicial branch, which was created by our founding fathers in the Constitution, right? And their thinking was, checks and balances are good, let's have a few more. So we have the legislative body, which makes the laws, the executive, which executes the laws, and we have the judiciary, which decides whether the laws are constitutional or not. Right? In England, you don't have that. You just have the legislative authority and the executive, and the justices are part of the executive. So when the king or the queen, the king now, comes marching in once a year into a parliament where he normally isn't allowed, it's not his place, right? He's accompanied by the justices in their robes of state as well. So they are all part of the executive. And that was Locke. So Locke has checks and balances, but only two parts of government, whereas we have three. It seems occasionally that the parliament seems to be a better deal, actually. France has a parliament as well. Plus, we don't just have a parliament, we have a Congress which consists of both the Senate and the House of Representatives, right? You can see how that doubles the problem. England has the House of Lords and the House of Commons, right? But we have the Senate, and I guess you do your studies in American government to see how those were designed and how they've changed over time. Yes? Senate, remember they get 6-year terms, representatives get 2, so the four individuals that are in the House of Representatives are basically always campaigning and trying to make money. I think the Senate is too, actually, now, because that's getting re-elected is such an important battle. But so social contract we looked at. the British empiricist problem, that's going to continue on. And so when we go next class and look at Leibniz, he's the next one we'll look at. And notice he's overlapping some. He actually gets to visit Thomas Hobbes, or almost. Remember, Thomas Hobbes didn't answer his mail, so even though he was there hoping to see Thomas Hobbes, he didn't get to see him. He did spend 2 weeks with Spinoza, but he lives longer than Locke. So he's the next one that we'll look at, and he's going to give us so many different things. He's considered, by the way, the greatest genius the Germans have ever had, so that's kind of impressive. And he's a contemporary also with Sir Isaac Newton, so I'll try to bring up Sir Isaac Newton and talk a little bit about the relationship they had. And one of the relationships they had is the invention of calculus, not the stuff on your teeth. So this is fun. They both invented calculus at about the same time, and in fact they were corresponding back and forth with one another. And by the way, George Berkeley was part of this relationship, and George Berkeley was quite a mathematician as well. And I'll argue for some really unusual things with regard to George Berkeley when we get to the calculus wars. If you are in Europe, always praise Gottfried Leibniz. If you're in England, never mention Leibniz by name, just Sir Isaac Newton. That's a cultural thing. The Brits are very fond of Sir Isaac Newton. He's clearly the greatest genius that ever lived. But if you're in continental Europe, who? Newton. Newton? Oh, yeah, the Brit. Yeah. But really, Leibniz, he's the greatest genius there ever was. So it's a cultural thing. Just be mindful of where you are, who you're talking with, so you don't get in trouble with them. That's just fun. That could be fun. It's another cocktail party thing. Quiz question for today. What do you think of Locke's materialism? What is Locke's materialism? Well, John Locke, follower of Thomas Hobbes, thinks that Aristotle was right, that everything has to be substance, so everything is made up of matter. And as far as Locke is concerned, all of matter is made up of atoms. Atoms, which are hard little things that kind of, just kind of niche in with one another and create the different things that are here and so on. It's almost like the alchemist. By the way, Sir Isaac Newton was really an alchemist who became a scientist. As science kind of came out of alchemy. Right? In fact, he wrote a lot more about alchemy than he wrote about what we think of as science, which is kind of interesting. What is alchemy, by the way?
Turning lead into gold.
Say again?
Lead into gold, right?
Lead into gold. Well, Paul?
And it's also concerned with like transmutation more generally, right? About changing things into other things.
Right. Well, if you're a materialist and you think that everything consists of atoms, and the atoms are all the same, right? but how they change into different shapes becomes different things. Well, if you go through the right processes, you ought to be able to take those atoms and break them down and then reformulate them into a thing that you want. So theoretically, we could take lead, change it, and make it gold instead. I mean, from a contemporary point of view, that's not such a outrageous idea, right? Because we're changing